guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have some Kindle Unlimited recommendations for you. These are all going to be horror, extreme horror, thrillers, mostly in that category. Now, if you know me, I absolutely love Kindle Unlimited. You know, you have to pay Jeff Bezos every month, but even with the price increase that they just did, I believe it's like 12 something a month now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I am horrible. But even with that price, if you're reading one book a month, that's already your money's worth. If you read more than that a month, you're getting more than your money's worth. So to me, it's worth it because I find a lot of my extreme horror on there. That's like mostly, like I don't own many extreme horror books physically, so that's mostly where I get my horror from. Yeah, at the time of filming this video, all these books are on KU. So if there is something that by chance you come across that I recommended that's not on there anymore, I apologize. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? This is going to be part one. I do have a lot of recommendations. So in the future, I'm gonna be filming more of these videos. This is kind of a long time coming because you guys have been asking this for a while now. The first horror book is The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. This is a short little book about this guy who, like everyone at this mental institution, is afraid of this one patient. And this one guy, like the psychiatrist, he doesn't understand why. So he's like, I am going to try to befriend this patient and get to know him and talk to him since like no one else will do it. Apparently people go in his room and crazy things happen. They die, they jump out the window, etc. So he is trying to get to know this patient. Super quick, super fast pace, and absolutely obsessed with this one. It's just a general horror book that I think would be great for this time of the year if you're looking for something quick. Next, Anya Elborne, absolutely love her. One of my favorite just general horror authors. She has most of her books on Kindle Unlimited, I believe. This is an author where she's kind of always switching out like what books are on there, and then sometimes she takes them off. So I don't know, but at the time of filming this, Brother is on there, my favorite book of all time, about this family who abducts and tortures and kills and eats women, and our main character does not believe, or he does not believe in what his family is doing. So there's some kind of like inner dialogue, and he just morally does not agree with what his family is doing. So that is this one, my favorite book ever. And then Seed by Anya Elborne is another great one. This one is about a man who something kind of sinister happens when he is a child, and now years and years later he's an adult, he has a family, and that thing starts kind of haunting his present day life. Like it kind of stuck with him throughout his entire life. I absolutely love this one. It was messed up, it was crazy, it was wild. Just where this went and the progression of things, obsessed. Next is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Pastorica. This one I've literally recommended 1,000 times, but this is about a man who works on a factory farm, only the factory farm, instead of having animals, they have humans. So this world, it's like a dystopian world where the animal meat goes poisonous, and they start factory farming humans to consume. And it is wild, insane, but the story is fantastic, the meaning is fantastic, everything about this is just like a masterpiece in my mind. So I highly, highly recommend. Next is The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. This is, of course, the novella by Clive Barker that inspired the Hellraiser movies. So this is about this guy who is obsessed with pleasure, and he's always seeking out like the greatest form of pleasure, and he ends up getting this puzzle box that opens a portal to another dimension, and kind of all hell breaks loose, literally. So that is this one. And my next recommendation is Halloween Fiend by C.B. Hunt. This is about a creature called Halloween, where every Halloween, this town, they are haunted by this creature, and so they have to constantly set out like little sacrifices and things to this creature, because they are terrified that he's going to eat them if they don't do these things. So people like hide in their homes, they don't leave the house, they like close all the blinds. It's kind of like a Bird Box situation, and I absolutely loved this one. The writing in this one was fantastic, and the ending got me. The ending is so good, so highly recommend this one if you're looking for a quick, it's short too, a quick Halloween read. This was fantastic. Next is Only the Stains Remain by Ross Jeffrey. This one is a little bit more graphic than the books that I just recommended, but in this one we are following this guy who was always abused by his uncles. Him and his brother were like horribly abused by their uncles when they were younger, and now in present day he is getting revenge on his uncles for all the horrible abuse and just trauma that he has gone through in his life and what they put his brother through. So we are just following him as he gets revenge on these uncles. There is a lot of like the gore and violence happens off page, but it is still like really traumatizing in a way, because it's a heavy read and it has to do with abuse, and there is some animal cruelty in this one. That like there's a scene that specifically sticks out to me, so yeah, be aware of that, but I highly recommend this one. Next, I'm going to get into some extreme horror and splatterpunk books. So the first one is The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. This is like an extreme horror classic, I would say. So this one, we are following this girl, and it's based on a true story of Sylvia Likens, so it's like a true crime case. I believe in the book it's her aunt. Am I making things up? Because in real life, like Sylvia Likens was abused by her caretaker. So let me see. I don't know. It just says that she's held captive, but anyways, she is held captive and basically brutally tortured by this woman holding her captive and the neighborhood children. It's like really disturbing. It's really messed up. It's one of the books that actually made me feel empty inside. Like I just stared into the void after finishing this one, but it is an extreme horror classic, really well done, and I highly recommend. I know the case in real life, I believe she was abused by like her babysitter. I don't know if it's her aunt in this book. It's really fuzzy, I don't remember, but regardless, heavy read. Next is Womb by Duncan Ralston. This one, oh my gosh. This one we are following this man who stays at this shitty motel, and he basically brings sex workers over and just starts telling them stories about his life and some things that have happened. And then we start learning stories about the sex worker, and they're just telling these stories back and forth until something absolutely insane happens at the end. So if you're looking for a disgusting read but like is still sad at times, check this one out. Next would be Judith Sonic. She has a bunch of books on Kindle Unlimited, and you know, they're constantly like switching in and out. So I feel like I always recommend the same books over and over again, like No One Writes for Free, Summer Never Ends, For the Sake of. I believe those are on Kindle Unlimited. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I am going to recommend two books that I haven't talked about a whole lot on this channel. The first one is Beast of Burden So this one is about this metal band, and it's kind of like a coming of age story turned extreme horror. So you're learning about this band and heavy character development, and they, you know, just want to make it as a band, but then their bassist quits. So now they're like, what the hell are we gonna do? So they decide to get this cameraman, this like photographer, to meet them at these caves, and they're going to have a photo shoot and kind of get their band started. But then things go south from there. It is so well done, so well written, tons of character development. The plot was wild, the ending was wild, highly recommend. And I love metal, so if you love metal, you will love this one. And then the other one I wanted to recommend is Bloodsuck. So this one is a wild one. So the first half is about snuff films. You're like following these three sisters who film snuff films, and then the second half of the book turns into this vampire story. When I say vampire story, I mean like this book goes off the walls, bananas, insane. It is wild. So if you're looking for a wild time, look no further. Next is John Athan. Absolutely love him. I really need to get on reading more of his books because I'm obsessed with him. And I need to read more, but I feel like I always recommend the same books over and over again. Same thing, I'm always recommending Into the Wolf's Den, Shared by Two, The Groomer. Those are my three favorites. But there are some other hidden gems that I haven't talked about a whole lot on this channel, and most of his books, if not all of his books, are on Kindle Unlimited. So the first one I wanted to recommend is Night of the Prowler. This would be a perfect October read because it is a slasher, and it's an extreme horror slasher where we are following this guy called the Prowler. He's a serial killer, and he ends up escaping from jail, I believe, and just kind of ends up on the loose. And then we're following this girl who works at a gas station, and she's doing the night shift by herself and finds out that the Prowler is on the loose. It is heart-pumping, anxiety-inducing, and I was just absolutely obsessed with this one. Highly recommend. I don't like too many slashers, and this one was so well done in my opinion. And then the other one is Lovesick. In this one, we are following this guy who is obsessed with his girlfriend. I read this one so long ago, so correct me if I'm wrong. My thoughts are a little fuzzy. He's obsessed with his girlfriend, and I think she's trying to leave him, and he doesn't want to let her leave. No. So he decides to collect infected blood, and he's like now obsessed with trying to give her diseases. It is disgusting, insane, wild. I never want to look at fast food again. The book is batshit. Like, this is wild. Next is Cows by Matthew Stokoe. Of course, I have an entire spoiler video on this if you don't want to read this, but this is about this man who works at a slaughterhouse, and what they are doing to the cows there is absolutely wild, disgusting, horrific. And at the same time, he's living at home with his mother, and he's dealing with just a lot of abuse, and his life sucks. So this story does have some deeper meanings other than just the shock value, the gore, the disgusting cow scenes. We are following abuse, depression, and how he feels compared to everyone else in society. It's a kind of artsy extreme horror book, but it is a classic nonetheless. Like, I consider this an extreme horror classic in my opinion. Next is PC3. I have 100% Match. This is like a super short kind of beginner style extreme horror where we are following this guy trying to find his 100% perfect match, and he kind of reminds me of Patrick Bateman. I've said this 1,000 times on my channel, but the way that he's just obsessed with everything like being a certain way, and he studies all these statistics on what women really want, and so you're just like following him as he tries to find his match, and oh my gosh. And I have Grandpappy by PC3. This is about a guy who goes to stay at his grandpappy's house, who is basically on hospice and he's dying, and he has to go take care of it because his parents are out on vacation. So he has to go kind of help like roll him and stuff. And what ends up happening is disgusting. It is another batshit wild book. Zola by D. McCluskey is a splatterpunk book about cheese, and I don't even know what else to say. We are just following this woman and her son throughout years and years as they navigate like the abusive father, and she turns to eating cheese as a coping mechanism, and then you're following her and her son and the things that happen. This is the most disgusting book I've ever read in my life. I will probably do a reread and film a spoiler video of this one because you guys have been begging me, but this is, oh my god. Then I think this is my last extreme horror rec. It is Toxic Love by Christopher Triana. He is another one where his books are kind of off and on Kindle Unlimited, but this one we are following this guy who works in a, like, he's like a cleanup person for like dead bodies at crime scenes. He's like a crime scene cleanup guy. And one day this like hot girl gets hired at his work, and he's like, what the hell is this girl doing working at this job? But turns out she has a kink for blood and dead bodies. And what ends up happening, oh my gosh, this has a lot of just like sex and gore, but then like the second half of the book takes this turn, and I just absolutely love this one. Love Christopher Triana. Moving into a couple thrillers, I have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is about this woman and this guy, and this husband and wife, and every year, excuse me, on their anniversary, she writes him a like journal entry, note, handwritten letter. What am I trying to say? She writes him a letter, and we kind of start learning about them through these letters, you know, throughout the years. And now in present day, they go on this little getaway to this secluded cabin in like a snowy, isolated setting, and there's someone else lurking around the cabin. So you're getting multiple POVs, you're getting the letters, and you're finding out that this couple is not what they seem. Next is Stillhouse Lake. So this is about a woman whose husband goes to jail for being a serial killer. So we find out that he kills a bunch of people, he gets arrested, and now she moves her family to this like secluded lake house. They start this life, they start their life all over again, and now she's getting letters and creepy things written by people that suggest maybe there is another serial killer, and dead bodies start showing up. So now she's wondering if there's another serial killer and if it's linked to her husband who is in jail. Next is The Last Flight by Julie Clark. So in this one, we are following this woman who's in an abusive marriage, and she decides to, long story short, switch plane tickets with another woman and kind of take over her life. So we are following these two women as they literally switch lives. But then something happens and all craziness breaks out. I really enjoyed this one. It's fast paced, it's enjoyable, and switching the POVs, I just found it really easy to read. Next is Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier, one of my all-time favorite thriller authors. So this is about this woman who was arrested for the murder of her best friend, but we're not sure if she actually did it or not, or what the full story is. All we know is that she was best friends with this girl in high school, and she was also dating a serial killer. So we find out that this girl's remains were found close to our main character's home, and so she was arrested, but we're not sure what's actually going on. So we slowly start learning the true story from when they were in high school and how this girl got murdered, and we're like, is it the serial killer boyfriend? Like, what is going on? Excellent read, super fast paced. I love Jennifer Hillier, one of my favorite thrillers of all time. Next is The Arrangement by Kirsten Modglin. Is that how you say her name? But this is about this husband and wife who aren't really like in love with each other anymore. So they make this agreement or this arrangement that they can start going on dates with other people. They just can't tell the other person who they're out on a date with. But soon enough, that rule is broken and all craziness breaks loose. Super quick read. It is a series. I read the second book. I didn't like it as much, but I highly recommend the first book. Next, I have a nonfiction recommendation, and it is If You Tell by Greg Olson. This is a true crime book about a woman who was a horrible piece of shit. She basically abused her children. I mean, this is horrific. She would like bring in people. She would have people stay with her and she would pretend like, oh, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm gonna help you out, and then would just horribly abuse them. Like, she would just abuse and torture everyone that came into her home and kept getting away with it for years and years and years and years. Really horrific read, really brutal, disgusting. The things that she did to her family, the things that she did to the people staying with her. This is like horrific. This is like real life horrifying shit, but this book is really well done, really well written, and just done in a way where it is engaging. Like, it's not boring, there's not a lot of useless information. It's just really, really well done. I highly recommend, if you're looking for a true crime, to check this one out. Next is Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. I don't really classify this as a thriller. I don't know. I think it's in the thriller category, but it's more just like a general fiction book to me. I don't know. But we are following this family, and this husband and wife, they have this teenage son. I think he's like 18, 19, and he has pedophilic disorder. He is caught molesting these young girls, and he is sent to a juvenile detention center, and you're just kind of following the parents as they cope with what has happened to their son, and you're also following the son's point of view. And Lucinda Berry is a psychologist, so you are getting like mental health representation and like accurate representation of the disorder and how the family is feeling, and it was really well done, really horrifying, disturbing read. Also very thought-provoking at the same time. This one is so well done, but it is a difficult, hard to read book. Then my next recommendation is My Dark Vanessa. This is like another kind of general fiction contemporary style book, and is about a girl that was groomed by one of her teachers. Another just super difficult, hard to read kind of book, but really well done. This book really just goes to show how deep trauma can be embedded in our minds and how easily you can be manipulated, especially as a young, 15-year-old girl. I think she was 15 in this book. And just how children get manipulated, and just how you can be manipulated into abuse even as an adult. The topics were handled really well. Another great thought-provoking style read. My last recommendation is actually a historical fiction. It's The Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. So this is the story of these two sisters, and the one sister, our main character, never really got along with their mother. Their mother was always like super kind of, I don't know, like not really loving or present in her life. And she passed away, and now in present day the father is passing away, and his last wish before he passes away is to get her, the main character, his daughter, to understand this fairy tale that his wife would always tell the girls when they were little. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? So we are just following this fairy tale that the other sister is telling her, and basically this fairy tale symbolizes everything that the mom went through during the war. I believe it was World War II. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, my memory is really fuzzy. So we are just kind of learning everything that the mom went through during the war and kind of why she was the way that she was. And really beautiful read, really just heartfelt, emotional, hard-hitting, like most Kristen Hanna books are. And I just absolutely love her writing. So yeah, that is it. Woo! Those are all my Kindle recommendations, my Kindle Unlimited recommendations for right now. Like I said, this is part 1. So yeah, I will definitely be filming more of these in the future, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!